Die actover en dramde against the single window of apartment daarbij. Each droplet a reminder of the liko deed would vallen. Maria Kovacic pressed her palm against the cold glass, watching the drops race down like tears she used to shed. The cramped space behind her, 16 square meters of cracked plaster and warped floorboards, keeping home for 3 years now, ever since she arrived in Zagreb from her small village near Slovenske Brod. The sound of litter echoed through the papertin walls, shark and kiting. She recognized Gorjabel's voice immediately. The woman he lived in the spacious corner apartment with rooms and pristine parquet floors. She was saying to someone, Matchbox, the nickname that they gave on Maria's tiny dwelling. The word stung more than the autumn chill seeking through the poorly sealed window trave. Maria lingers traced the condensation on the glaze, creating small skulls that disappeared how quickly how they formed. She could smell the rich aroma of sarma wetting around the apartment above, could hear the clinking of proper dishes and the murmur of satisfied conversation. Heron then sat cooling on the single electric bird, a modest portion of beans and a slice of yesterday from the disconvectional Zarit. The elevator wheezed to lighthouse out, its mechanical groaning a familiar symphony in this aging building on the zgradi. Soon, she knew, the evening ritual would begin. The neighbors would emerge around their comfortable apartments, heading out to their evening koi at a nearby kavana, and she would become invisible again, or worse, the subject of their barely concealed amusement. The hallway of the old Havara building, Gotrich before, Maria lacked a gallery of gagment. Fluorescent light flickered overhead, casting hair shadows that seemed to imply every imperfection, the scared walls, the worn carpet run, and her own reflection in the polished brass mailboxes that repelled out names she had learned to recognize by their disdain. Petar Juric emerged from apartment 3A, his design gekit catching the light. Thorto, he works in real estate development, a fact he mentioned frequently and loudly during his own conversations in the courtyard. He is swept over Maria with the practice dismissal of someone who categorizes people by their net worth. Dobro jutro, hi Mater, the greeting parliamentary and cold. Dobro jutro, gospodine Juric, Maria replied, her voice steady by the latter in her chest. She clutched her worn leather satchel, a gate around her with mud, closer to her seat. Inside lay her most precious possessions, a notebook filled with calculations, business articles torn around newspapers, and a small photograph of the farm where she had grown up. Anna Tomic descended the stair with her usual theatrical flair, her heel clicking against the marble sticks like a metronome of superiority. 20 and recently divorced, she lived in the building's most coveted apartment, a toppler unit with the wing of the cathedral spires. Her perfume, something incomprehensible in French, created a cloud of exclusivity as she paced. Still living in the closet, Isse, Anna said, not quite quietly enough to be considered a whisper. Her companion, a woman Maria didn't recognize, giggled behind her manicured hand. I don't know how anyone survives in such a tiny space. It is very large enough to a bedroom. Maria's rings tightened around her satchel, but her occupation remained neutral. She learned, during her careers in this building, the reaction was what they wanted, a sign that their words had found their target. Instead, she simply nodded politely and continued toward the entrance, where the morning light tilted through the Art Nouveau stained glass, painting rainbow patterns on the worn marble floor. Midnight in apartment where it was a sanctuary of beauty. The building settled into its evening quiet, the last footsteps echoing in the hallways before doors closed and lock turned. Maria sat at her small wooden tablet, a piefje erin is gesubikeerd al kennis en endless patience, surrounded by the tool of her transformation. The locked screen kissed op een gloorkruis gered als she navigated through initial websites. Her thing with dancing across key-worn smeared by countless hours of research. She did tot gezellig English during her year in Zagreb, spending evenings in the public library on Saturday tag, absorbing vocabulary like open deopritor water. Now, 3 years later, she could read international business journal with the fluency of someone born to the language. Coldly cold in a chip ceramic mag beside her elbow, targasan in the intensity of her focus. The numbers on her screen told a story of careful accumulation, each kuna saved, each investment chose research with the thoroughness of someone who couldn't afford a single mistake. Her salary from the accounting firm was modest, Bushedelen to lavo on les den kedovit, directing every spare coin toward her own portfolio. The notebook beside her laptop contained her most sacred information, property values in the Doi Grad district, rental rates, maintenance costs, and most importantly, the building is on a chic structure. She had discovered, through careful research and patient observation, that the current owner was a development company struggling with debt. The building, through its marble elegance and capable pedigree, was bleeding money through their maintenance and rent-controlled apartments. Outside her window, Zagreb slept peacefully under a canopy of stars barely visible through the city gentle glow. The trains had stopped running hours ago, and even the late-night Kavichi had closed their doors. In this silence, Maria felt moordgezellen, not that with a mockery beatty, but a woman with a plan of salad at a stone foundations beneath her teeth. Saturday mornings attendance at Dolas brought Zagreb to life in a symphony of cows, sounds, and aromas that never failed to remind Maria of her village roots. The red umbrellas outstretched across the market like a patchwork quilt, sheltering vendors who called out their wares in voices that carried across the cobblestones with practiced enthusiasm. Maria moved through the crowds with the efficiency of someone who understood the value of every kuna. Her canvas bag, worn boots would return home filled with the week's carefully calculated prices. She didn't to shop late, when vendors were eager to sell their remaining products rather than pack it away. A thin canned words in the local dialect, a genuine smile, and she could utrecht her budget to include luxuries her neighbors took for granted. Maria, Draga, called Slavko, an elderly farmer from the hills outside Zagreb. His weatherkind Gelchar toward a box of leche and tomatoes, their red ukins promising sweetness. Thoring, special prize. These are from my own garden. The kindness of strangers sustained her through the loneliest months of her days in the city. While her neighbors saw only her small apartment and simple clothes, people like Slavko recognized something deeper, the resilience of someone whom they learned to bloom wherever she was planted. She purchased the tomatoes along with a small bunch of fresh parsley, already planning the simple meal they would nourish her and Veko Kerta living. As she walked home through the narrow streets of Goigrad, the cathedral bells tolled noon, their bronze voices echoing with the medieval voice that could witness countless stories of transformation. At the building's entrance, she encountered Gora Babic returning from her own shopping expedition. The older woman is big bore the logos of Vikopensi boutiques, her arms laden with purchases del coco casual abundance. Still shopping at the Vazen market, she observed, her voice carrying the vertical cruelty of someone that had gotten their own humble beginnings. Maria smiled politely, her fingers unconsciously touching the small notebook in her jacket pocket. Inside, written in her careful handwriting, were the line calculations she had completed the night before. The numbers were brutal in their precision, promising a face they would realize every assumption these people could make about the quiet woman in apartment lobby. The letter arrived on a Tuesday. It was a familiar handwriting immediately recognizable, occupied the month since Maria had last seen it. Herman Harris okrikt plot across the triangular way with the elegance of someone who learned to write without a bench and carried a Latin in the dorm. The envelope bore the postmark of Slavonska Brod, carrying with it the scent of home. Lavender and fresh bread in a particular quality where they belonged to white fields and distant horizons. Maria sat in her single chair, the liquor trembling slightly in her cans. Outside, the afternoon sun filtered through a small window, casting geometric patterns across the wooden floor. She could hear the building's familiar sounds, the elevator's mechanical breathing, footsteps on the stairs above, the distant murmur of a television in one of the larger apartments. Moja draga Maria, the letter began, and immediately Sears threatened the corners of her house. Her mother's words painted pictures of Hadwig's scene, when neighbors left at her hair constantly, with a small farmer that grew quieter with each passing month. Your little peaks of every evening, her mother wrote. He sits in his chair by the window and watches the road, how it might appear at any moment. The letter contained news of her childhood friends. Petra had married her longtime sweetheart, Tomislav had taken over his family's vineyard, and Anka had given birth to twin daughters. Life were unfolding in the comfortable rhythms of tradition and expectation, while Maria sat in her in square meters of uncertainty, building dream from numbers and determination. Her mother's line of Beragrid made her just tighten with longing. The village Mrs. Eve would know were meant for greater things. Your grandmother always said you get the spirit of someone whom would join the world. We trust in your journey, even when we don't understand it. Come home when you can, but know that you carry our love where you go with. Maria loaded the letter carefully, placing it in the small wooden box where she kept her most precious possessions. Tomorrow she would ride back, but tonight she would allow herself to feel the weight of distance and the prison of dreams. The city lights behind her window seemed both torn and familiar, a reminder that transformation required leaving something behind to learn something new. January in Zagreb wrapped the city in a blanket of crystal and cold that turned breath of vapor and made every city shark with frost. Maria's apartment, never adequately heated, became a theft of endurance as she made with layer of clothing and a warmth of focused determination. The small electric heater should they press second kind out against the drape of the one there with every crack and crevice in the old building gate's bones. The silence of winter nights was different from the quiet of other seasons, thick, more complete, with a cold and frozen sound itself. Maria had grown to love these hours when the building slept, and she could work without the constant reminder of her neighbor's presence. Her desk lamp created a skull of golden light that held her world of calculations, projections, and carefully documented progress. Snow began to thaw as she worked, each flake visible in a glow of the outreach light outside her window. The accumulation was slow but steady, covering the courtyard in a blanket of white that made everything seem possible. She learned to learn beauty in the small things, the way morning lights got across on her window, the satisfaction of a perfectly balanced baguette, the quiet pride of anemone savings added to her growing fan. The building gas heating system groaned and rattled through the walls, an expensive symphony that reminded her of a financial burden the current owners faced. Every mechanical complaint was a data point in her analysis, every maintenance issue a factor in her calculations. She began to think of the building not of a place that barely tolerated her presence, but as a complex financial puzzle she was uniquely positioned to solve. Her tone was with a text message from her college friend Petra, now living in Split. Kako si? Misliš li na povrata kući? The question hung in the airlock that steamed from her coffee cup. Was she thinking of returning home? The answer was complicated, layered with ambition and homesickness in equal measure. She was building something here in Zagreb, but sometimes the weight of it felt heavier than the winter snow accumulating outside her window. She tapped very carefully. Dobro sam. Radim na nečem važnom. I am working on something important. The words felt inadequate to express the magnitude of what she was planning, but they would get us less. Some transformations required silence until they were complete. The first warm day of April brought more than just a promise of wet red. It brought Maria's moment of decision. She stood at her window, watching the courtyard below come alive with the sun's tender green shoots pushing through the window airs. The building gate's residents could emerge from their apartments like flowers seeking sunlight, gathering in small groups to share communally of survive winter. Her notebook lay open on the table behind her, filled with months of meticulous research and calculation. The numbers told a story of opportunity. The building gate's current owners were struggling with mounting debt, dear maintenance, and the challenge of rent-controlled apartments they generated insufficient income. What they saw as a burden, Maria saw potential waiting to be unlocked. The sound of litter drifted up from the courtyard, and she recognized Anna Todd's voice among the others. Can we imagine living in a space so small? Anna was saying, her words carrying clearly in the opening air. Here she don't even have a proper bedroom. Where does she sleep? In the kitchen? The familiar sting of their mockery no longer could afford to warn how deeply away one scared. Instead, Maria felt a cool satisfaction as she viewed the financial documents operate across her desk. Her portfolio had grown steadily over the past year, helped by careful investments and the gradual recovery of the Croatian economy. More importantly, she identified the building gate's true value, not just its current income, but its potential under different management. She spent weeks analyzing comparable properties in the neighborhood, studying the market trends, and most crucially, understanding the building gate's specific challenges and opportunities. The location was prime, walking distance to the cathedral, close to the university, surrounded by the kind of amenities that attracted young professionals. With proper management and strategic improvements, the building could become a showcase rather than a burden. Her phone displayed the contact information toward the property management company. The numbers she had researched and verified multiple times. The conversation she was about to initiate would change everything, but she felt ready. 3 years of careful preparation could lead to this moment, and she would not let it pass unnoticed. The offices of Aratic Properties occupied the top floor of a modern building in Novi Zagreb, its glazed walls offering panoramic views of the city decorated from the Sava River to the hill beyond. Maria sat in the reception area, her appearance carefully chosen to project competence without revealing the full extent of her intentions. The navy suit she wore was her only inoffensive garment, perhaps specifically her moments like this when first impressions could determine outcomes. Jacob Markovich, the company's director, emerged from his office with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being the most important person in any room. His handshake was firm, his smile professional but distant. Gospođa Kovačić, he said, consulting the business card she presented. I understand or interested in discussing one of our properties. The conference room highlighted her was all chrome and glass. It was magnetic, a stark contrast of the Kepberg elegance of the building they were about to discuss. Maria placed her portfolio on the polished tablet, its contents representing years of careful analysis and planning. I am interested in the building on Petroka Street, she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was proposing. Markovich's cooperation shifted from polite interest to surprise. The building had been a persistent challenge for his company. Its aging infrastructure, rent-controlled apartments, and demanding tenants had made it more a burden than a asset. Unusual interest, I said carefully. The property has significant challenges. The maintenance costs alone. I am aware of the challenges, Maria interrupted gently. I have been conducting my own analysis of the property's potential. She opened her portfolio, revealing months of detailed visits presented with the presence of someone who understood that numbers could be more persuasive than words. The building's current difficulties stem from management approach rather than fundamental structural issues. For the next hour, she walked him through her analysis, the neighborhood's development trajectory, the building's architectural significance, the potential for strategic improvements that could transform it from a financial burden into a profitable asset. Markovich's initial skepticism gradually gave way to recognition of the thoroughness of her preparation. This is quite comprehensive, I admitted, studying her projections. But he kept to ask, what makes you think you can succeed where we struggled? Maria smiled, the cooperation containing depth of experience I couldn't possibly understand. Because he lived there, she said simply. He understands the building's needs, and I did numbers alone Santa capture. The days following her meeting with Aratic, properties stretched like thought war, each hour waited with anticipation that made concentration nearly impossible. Maria wanted to shaking her tone compulsively, gulping at every sound in the hallway, analyzing every interaction with her neighbors through signs that somehow news of her intentions get leaked. She maintained her usual routine with almost aggressive normalcy. The morning walk to work, the evening stops at a market, the quiet hours of reading and planning that could become her sanctuary. But underneath the familiar patterns, excitement thrummed like electricity in her veins. The possibility of transformation, so long held as a distant dream, now felt close enough to touch. The building around her seemed dead, and now that she had spoken her intentions aloud. Every creaking floorboard, every flickering light, every complaint from her neighbors about maintenance issues became part of a larger story she was writing. The problems they saw as annoyances, she saw as opportunities for improvement that would benefit everyone. Anna Tomic passed hours in the hallway on Thursday evening, returning around what appeared to be a successful shopping expedition. Her arms were too vague from occupancy boutiques, and her smile held a particular satisfaction of someone who had found exactly what they were looking for. Still creeping by in the matchbox. You see, she said, the comment delivered with practice casual cruelty. Zasada, Maria replied quietly. Tornao. The words carried more weight than Anna could possibly understand, but they felt like a promise Maria was making to herself. That thing she had been building in silence was about to become reality, and with it would come a reckoning that would redesign every relationship in the building. Date not, als she sat at her desk reviewing her calculations on el anal time, her på rang. Da korai de shortadiotic properties, and Maria's heart rate immediately accelerated. She took a deep breath, centering herself on what could be the most important conversation of her life. Gospođa Kovačić, Jacob Markovitch's voice was normal but not unfriendly. I will get a chance to review your proposal in detail. I think we should meet again. There are some terms they'd like to discuss. The contract signing took place on a Wednesday morning. Date fell suspended between past and fiction, reality and dream. Maria arrived at the offices of Arabic Properties 30 minutes late. Her portfolio now containing notes as analysis with actual ownership documents they would transfer the building from corporate Kens to hers. The morning sun streamed through the glass walls, casting everything in golden light that seemed to promise you beginnings. Jacob Markovitch greeted her with newfound respect, the kind visitor clarity they prove on their seriousness with substantial financial backing. The negotiations had been complex but fair. Her analysis had been thorough enough to demonstrate that she understood exactly what she was pricing, including all its challenges and potential. The financing arrangements are quite creative, Markovitch commented as they reviewed the final documents. Maria could structure the process to minimize her initial cash outlay, while demonstrating her commitment to the property's long-term success. Your banking relationships are impressive to someone so young. The compliment was around through years of careful financial management and strategic relationship building. She had cultivated connections with loan officers, demonstrated her reliability through small transactions, and built a credit history that spoke to her character as clearly as any prono reference. The woman whom they once outragled to afford groceries now get access to capital that would transform not just her life, but the lives of everyone in the building. As she signed her name to the final document, Maria felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders alongside the satisfaction of achieved goals. She was no longer just a tenant in apartment Vabe. She was the owner of the entire building, responsible for its management, its maintenance, and its pitch. The keys felt substantial in her palm, they were both literal and metaphorical. Each key represented not just access to a physical space, but the power to share the living conditions of everyone on call the building home. It was a responsibility she intended to kindle with grace, wisdom, and perhaps just a touch of poetic justice. Walking with Cordoi Grad toward the building that was now hers, Maria felt the city around her differently. The street seemed more welcoming, the offering a more dealt with possibility. She was returning home, but also arriving at a destination she had been working toward 2 years without fully understanding the journey's end. Maria entered the building through the main entrance, her keys still warm around the sounding ceremony, but made no announcement of the change that had just occurred. The marble floors reflected her footsteps as she walked toward the elevator, past the brass mailboxes that now technically belonged to her, past the Art Nouveau stained glass that tilted Aiden light into rainbow patterns across scissors she was now responsible for maintaining. The building felt different, not in any physical way, but in the subtle shift of perspective that comes with ownership. Every shadow on the walls, every loose tile, every piece of dared maintenance was now hers and her opportunity. She found herself mentally cataloging improvements she could make, based on the building Escapeberg heritage while modernizing its systems to contemporary living. Apartment Vabe welcomed her with a Miller cramped comfort, but even this always felt transformed by context. She was no longer the reluctant tenant of the building's smallest unit. She was the owner kept alive in one of her own apartments. The distinction was profound, though she suspected it would be some time before she truly processed the implications. She made herself cozy and sat at her small tablet, looking out the window at the courtyard below. Often residents moved through the space, going about their daily routines with no awareness that their lives get just changed in a fundamental way. The power so altered their living conditions now rested with the woman to be dismissed as irrelevant, and Maria found herself contemplating the responsibility with careful attention to justice and mercy. Her tone died with a music from her mother. Kako si, draga? Dugo nismo razgovarali. How are you, dear? We haven't talked in a long time. Maria smiled, realizing that she could finally share good news, though she suspected her mother would be more interested in her daughter's happiness than her business success. The building settled into a evening quiet around her, but as the familiar sounds carried new meaning. She was home, truly home, in a way she had never been before. That transformation was complete, though its implications were just beginning to unfold. The maintenance crew arrived on Monday morning. They were parked discreetly in the building's courtyard. Maria had hard them through a recommendation from her contact at the bank, choosing a company known for quality work and professional discretion. The improvements she planned would be noticeable but not dramatic, the kind of upgrades that enhance daily life without going into themselves. She made a Thorman, a steady man named Josik Vedet Ken Skoko decades opened making building baker. The elevator first, she instructed, handing him a detailed list of priorities. Then the heating system in the basement. After that, LLR's the water pressure issues on the upper floors. The work began with the cloud efficiency operationals who understood that the best improvements often went unnoticed while some benefited from them. Maria had chosen to start with infrastructure, the invisible systems that made modern life possible but rarely received attention until they failed. From her apartment window, she watched her neighbor reactions as they discovered the elevator running more smoothly, noticed the improved lighting in the hallways, felt the warmer temperatures in their apartments. Petar Jimru from his unit testing his tunnel's signal strength, clearly puzzled by the sudden improvement in cellular reception that could come with the updated electrical systems. Strength, she heard Anna Tomic commenting to a friend. The management company Mask finally decided to invest some money in this old place. About time, considering what we pay in rent. The irony and the lost on Maria. Her neighbors attributed the improvements to the very company that had been eager to sell the building due to its maintenance savings. They couldn't imagine that the solution to their building's problems had been leaving a man down all along, dismissed and overlooked in the apartment they labeled a matchbox. Each improvement was a small act of justice, a demonstration that Tsare and attention could transform spaces that could be neglected. Maria found deep satisfaction in the work, not just because it increased her property's value, but because it made daily life better for everyone who lived there. The building's monthly residence meeting was scheduled to occur the evening in May, conducted in the ground floor common room that hadn't been used for its intended purpose in years. Maria came quietly into the office to be cleaned and prepared, though she had given no indication that she would be attending. The meeting was called to discuss the recent improvements and other concerns about fixed rent increases. She arrived precisely at 7 o'clock, her presence causing a slight among the assembled residents. Anna Tomic looked up from her conversation with obvious surprise. It didn't know tenants around the small units were invited, she said, her voice carrying the assumption that Maria had somehow misunderstood the nature of the gathering. Gobija Babic, serving out the building's unofficial spokesperson, stood at the front of the room with a odor of complaints and concerns. "We're here to discuss the recent changes to our building," she announced. "Someone has been making improvements without consulting the residents, and we need to know who is responsible." Maria took a seat in the back row. Her hands nodded calmly in her leg. Around her, the familiar voices of her neighbors dealt there with speculation and concern. Some read about rent increases, others questioned the quality of the work, and Afimiko placed grudging appreciation to the improvements to their daily comfort. The management company must be planning to sell, Petar Juric suggested. They're making improvements to increase the building's value. We should be prepared for new ownership that might not be as accommodating of the current arrangement. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, with residents sharing theories and concerns while Maria listened with growing amusement. Finally, Gospodin Babic asked the question that had been implicit throughout the discussion. "Does anyone know whom the new property manager is? We should request a meeting to establish our expectations." Maria stood slowly, her movement drawing the attention from the assembled group. "Actually," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "I think I can help with that question." The silence that followed Maria's words was profound, filled with the weight of assumptions being challenged and realities being redefined. She reached into her leather satchel, the summer warm that could carry her dream and calculations for years, and withdrew a folder containing the building's ownership documents. "My name is Maria Kovacic-Markovic," she said, using her married name for the first time in public. The marriage had been read but legal, Conducted en opleto manselirto akan mangander. Dit sometimes lovis ook unconventional terms en dit mutual reobics kubiets on foundation. Any aim the building gives you on. The verde set out over the room laukono, each resident processing the indermation at derum pace. Anna Tomage's mouth opened slightly. Her usual composure cracking as she tried to reconcile the woman she did dismiss with the pro now claiming ownership of their building. Peter Ruge's real estate expertise kicked in as high calculated the financial implications of what they were hearing. Impossible, Gospels above it said. Her voice barely above a whisper. Alive in the indontekiv. She couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't articulate the assumptions they had just been shaken. Maria smiled. The occupation carrying years of patient endurance and careful planning. He lived in apartment var because he chose to live simply while he saved or something more significant. Every comment about my matchbox apartment, every layer of my simple clothes, every assumption about my circumstances, they all helped me stay focused on my goal. She opened the folder, revealing the official documents that transferred ownership from erotic properties to her own holding company. The papers were real. The signatures notarized. The transaction recorded with the appropriate government offices. There was no deception, no mistake, just the prolonged reversal of a situation that could seem permanent. The improvements we've been going are the beginning of a comprehensive renovation plan, she continued. This building has incredible potential, and intend to honor its history and its weeks. Your leases will be honored. Your concerns will be addressed, and your homes will be maintained to the highest standards. The room remained silent, each resident grappling with the magnitude of their milk calculation and the grace with which it was being kindled. The days following the revelation paced in a delicate dance of adjustment and recognition. Maria continued to live in apartment Vabe, but her presence in the building carried away in meaning. Neighbors who had previously looked through her now offered tentative smiles and careful greetings, their behavior reflecting the universal human tendency to recalibrate relationships when power dynamics shift. Anna Tomic was the first to approach directly, appearing at Maria's door on a Saturday morning with a small bouquet of flowers from the market. Her usual confidence was tempered by something dismaying in humility, though she struggled to lend words to the apology she clearly felt she owed. He wanted to this. Anna began, then stopped, the inadequacy of language becoming apparent. He never realized. He mean he should give. You don't need to apologize, Maria said gently, accepting the allows with genuine appreciation. He responded to what he saw, and he chose not to reveal what he was working toward. We were both acting according to our understanding at the TV. The conversation they followed was tentative but honest, two women discovering that their assumptions about each other had been based on limited information. Anna's apparent privilege missed financial struggles from her divorce, while Maria's apparent poverty could conceal careful planning and substantial resources. Both had been performing versions of themselves that aren't entirely authentic. Peter Ruiz of her out later David, his real estate professional quality overcoming his personal embarrassment. Your financing strategy was brilliant, I admitted. I've been in this business for 15 years, and you won't take a thought to structure up just that way. Where did you learn commercial real estate? The same place in renovations, Maria replied, from necessity and careful observation. Their conversation evolved into a professional consultation, with Peter offering insights about property management and Maria sharing her vision for the building gate stage. Whatever it was a partnership that benefited from both his expertise and her intimate knowledge of the property's needs. Opening melted into summer with the building gate transformation taking visible form in the courtyard that had long been neglected. Maria hired a landscape designer to create a garden space that would serve all the residents, but she spent her own evenings working alongside the professionals, her candle dark with soil and her heart light with percasse. The design honored the building escapeable heritage while creating spaces for contemporary living. Climbing roses were trained against the walls, their peach blooms promising to sow the harsh lines of urban architecture. Small seating areas were created for morning coffee and evening conversation, while a community garden section allowed residents to grow herb and vegetables if they chose. Gopia Bobby proud everyone by requesting a plot or her tomatoes, admitting that she had grown up on a farm and missed the satisfaction of growing gold. It never to the decade opportunity again, she said. Her was carrying decades of urban living that gradually separated her from her rural roots. The work created natural opportunities for conversation and connection. Maria found herself sharing gardening advice with neighbors who they previously ignored her existence, while they offered insights about the building's history and the neighborhood's development. The physical transformation of the space was paralleled by a social transformation among the residents. Children from neighboring buildings were drawn to the garden, their parents valuing to supervise and often staying to chat. The courtyard became a social hub that extended the building's influence beyond its walls, creating connections with the broader community. Maria watched from her window how the space she envisioned came to life, till with later in conversation they proved architecture could facilitate human connection. The success of the garden project led to discussions about other improvements, a community room to events, improved lighting to evening gatherings, perhaps even a small library where residents could share books and stories. Each conversation reinforced Maria's belief that good property management was about more than maintaining buildings. It was about creating environments where people could thrive. The letter to her parents was the most difficult and most important she'd ever written. Maria sat at her desk on a Sunday evening, watching the sunset paint the courtyard in shades of gold and umber, searching for words that could convey the magnitude of her transformation without diminishing the values that they instilled in her. Dragi mama I tata, she began, her been moving slowly across the paper as she chose each word with vicove. The authority she needed to tell was on obeisance rewarded, with quiet uttering fending it was, with the values that of her bearing root in ways none of them could give him. She described the building press without dwelling on the financial details, focusing instead on the opportunity to create something meaningful. You taught me that true will comes from treating others with respect and working towards something larger than ourselves, she rose. I am finally in a position to earn those lessons in which they will benefit not just me, but everyone who shares disobeys. The lady spoke of her neighbors, their gradual transformation from antagonists to allies, the genuine surrogate dissolved barrier that could seem permanent. She mentioned the garden project, knowing her parents would appreciate the connection to their agricultural roots and the community events that were bringing people together. I miss home every day, she admitted in the letter's closing paragraphs. But every learned that home is just a place we return to. It is something we create wherever we choose to invest our hearts and energy. Zagreb how become home and very never expected, and I think you will be proud of what I am building here. The letter would travel to Slanski Broad, carrying news that would amaze her parents and bring honor to the family name. But more importantly, it would convey the message that their daughter had found her place in the world and was using her position to lift others up rather than tear them down. As she sealed the envelope, Maria felt the satisfaction of a story well told and a life well lived. The transformation was complete, but the work of building community and maintaining relationships was ongoing. She was ready to both challenges. The year's annual building festival took place on the longest day of summer, when the sun lingered in the sky until nearly 10 o'clock and the courtyard garden bloomed with the true promise of Maria's vision. She could suggest the event casually, but the residents embraced it with enthusiasm that surprised everyone, including herself. Tables appeared from various apartments, covered with dishes that represented the building's surprising diversity. Anna Tomic contributed a sophisticated pasta salad that revealed previously hidden culinary skills, while Gospođa Babić brought sarma made from her grandmother's recipe. Petar Juric, in a deep clear of unexpected whimsy, set up a small bar serving create cocktails made with herbs from the community garden. Children from neighboring buildings were invited, their later telling the always vaguely decorated walls and created natural acoustics to informal cancer they developed. Sambanke brought a guitar. Another resident produced a small accordion, and the evening evolved into the kind of spontaneous celebration that creates lasting memories. Maria moved through the crowd not of the building's own bureau host, ensuring everyone felt welcome and included. She noticed how the physical improvements they made, better lighting, comfortable seating areas, the large garden, facilitated social connection in ways that went beyond their practical benefits. Good architecture, she realized, was about creating spaces where human nature could flourish. The festival's highlight came when Gospoja Babic stood to make a toast. To our building, she said, raising her glass of pale and said again cocktail. Into learning that we never really know the people around us until we take the time to look beyond our assumptions. That toast was echoed by everyone present, but Maria felt it was directed particularly at her, recognition of the grace they traveled and the grace with which they kindled her transformation from ashes to on. The applause date followed felt like acceptance and appreciation in equal measure. How that evening wound down, and residents began clearing tables and collecting dishes. Maria found herself standing in the center of the courtyard, surrounded by the community she had helped create. The building that had once felt like a prison now felt like a home in the truest sense, a place where people cared for each other and worked together toward common goals. Autumn returned to Zagreb with its familiar palette of gold and rust, but this year the changing seasons carried different meaning to Maria. The building that had once marked time with her isolation now measured months of community and connection. The trees they planted in the courtyard displayed their first seasonal transformation, their leaves creating a canopy of cloud that filtered sunlight into patterns of promise. The building's renovation was complete, but its evolution continued. The community room had become a popular gathering space for everything from book clubs to children's birthday parties. The rooftop garden, her most ambitious addition, provided herbs and vegetables to residents while ordering views of Zagreb's skyline that reminded everyone of their place in the larger city. Her relationship with her neighbors could settle into comfortable familiarity. Anna Tomic had become an ally in organizing community events. Her social skills and aesthetic sense complementing Maria's practical management approach. Petar Juric served as an informal advisor on property matters, his expertise balanced by her intuitive understanding of what the building needed. Most surprisingly, Gospoja Babic could become something like a friend. Their shared interest in gardening could reveal common ground that transcended their different backgrounds, and the old woman's stories of Zagreb's history in Maria's appreciation to the building's place in the city's development. On a crisp October evening, Maria stood at her window in apartment lobby, looking out at the courtyard where residents were sharing an impromptu dinner under the altering lights she'd installed. That scene was everything she'd hoped for when she'd first envisioned transforming the building, a community where people chose to spend time together, where differences were celebrated rather than scorned. Her home base with a text from her mother, dolazimo u Zagreb za blagdane. Želimo vidjeti što si izgradila. Ere coming to Zagreb for the holidays. We want to see what we built. The message till her with nervous anticipation. Her parents would see not just the building she'd purchased, but the community she'd created and the woman she'd become. The scout was closing, but not ending. The transformation that could begin with mockery and dismissal could become a story of vision, and the power of treating others with dignity regardless of their treatment of you. The building that could once house her smallest apartment now contained her largest dreams, all of them realized through the simple revolutionary reusing so that's behind her verse. As she prepared to read, Maria reflected on the journey that brought her to this moment. The woman in advance head on around her neighbor let her now tell asleep to the sound of their contentment, secure in the knowledge that she built something bookable and lasting. The building that once been a collection of strength and sharing, always could become a community sharing life, and she was both its architect and its great resident. The authority of the mailbox apartment could become the story of the woman home from that the smallest offices could contain the largest dreams, and that sometimes the best living was simply living Vilina to lift others up along the way. In Zagreb, in a building that could learn to value all its residents equally, Maria could found not just success but home in its truest storm.